Hello, everyone. My name is Julio Colon. I am part of the Azure Marketplace onboarding team. My role is to help partners and developers get their solution into the Azure Marketplace. Patrick?
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick BOD130. I'm a technical director also on the onboarding team for the marketplace. And same as Julio, our role is to bring our partner solutions and developers into the marketplace. So for the talk today, we're going to be looking at the skills, the tools, and what is needed for you to enable your solutions to the marketplace, especially those SaaS solutions that you may have currently today. We'll start by an overview of what are the skills that you're going to get from this talk. We're going to then look into what are actually the components that you're going to need for developing a SaaS application. We look at from those core components, what are the most important concepts that you're going to need for bringing your solution into a place where you can make money and commercialize it. The fourth point today is going to be talking about how you enable the SaaS solution that you currently have or you are about to develop into the marketplace. In the last part, we'll do an overview of a community-developed transactable SaaS SDK and code samples that will help you bring the solution that you have today and connect it with the marketplace. And with that, I'll let Julio go to the next part, which is going to be talking about what the scaling outcome is going to be.
So let's go over what you're going to be gaining from the session today. Today, we want you to go and leave with the understanding of the core components of a SaaS application. We want to go over the concept of the marketplace, and we want you to know how to enable the SaaS applications and leverage your solutions using our community-based SaaS SDK and our examples.
Thanks a lot, Julio, for the review of the skills that we're going to gain today. With that, let's jump into the components of a SaaS application. So in the current day, SaaS applications can be multifaceted. We have a lot of different ways to really build them, and that can get complex sometimes. The way I like to think about it is today we have more and more tools in our toolbox to develop them. But one of the important things to understand is what are those tools, right? So let's start with the different cloud models. We have today 4 cloud models that we can utilize to build our solutions for infrastructure, platform as a service, container as a service, and function as a service. Then we have more than 20 years of experience in the industry developing SaaS applications. So you're going to see a lot of different reference architectures from very basic models to models that will expand, at a global level. The last part is, selecting what are the building blocks that really make sense for your solution. So, I have 3 main blocks, and then we'll go over those from the operational, application, and DevOps level. I'm going to give you a quick view of an architecture model of a web solution. In this model, you can see already that you're going to have multiple tiers. You have identity that is driven by Azure Active Directory. You have things like Redis Cache, who will take care of your data storage and your solutions. We also have Azure CDN that will allow you to deliver static content very fast in a global fashion. And then the last part that you see right in the middle on the web front end is we have a queue that would allow you to basically have a very fast distributed solution. And then we also make use of function apps. So the point is, make sure to understand where are the cloud models available for you and what are the tools that you can use to make your solution better. From there, we can always look at, what are the reference architectures out there. Microsoft has a lot of that information available on the / architecture and patterns, parties and partners team. You can see here a basic architecture. One of the things that we like to do when we talk to our partners, to the developers and startups, is let's start with an MVP. Right? Let's start with something that is small. Don't go, even if you have to do like a global solution that are going to span multiple geographies, make sure that you go with a very simple design first, and then you can expand on things like improving scalability, right? So this is the previous example that we show where we have a queue, we have a CDN, and we have Redis Cache that will improve the scalability and the availability of that solution. And we have authentication, authorization, basically a global identity engine that would allow you to secure that with Azure Active Directory. After you take care of this, you can always jump into things that will allow you to see how you can distribute that solution across multiple geographies, or even in the same geography. You may want to have multiple deployments because you want to increase availability of that solution, right? So geo-replication is a very important part of SaaS solutions. Partners and practices have done an excellent job of showing you what are the best way to utilize Azure resources to get that done. The last part I want to talk about is what are the things that go around the application. So not the SaaS app itself, but we're looking at how do we monitor the application, how we audit the application, how do we make sure that everything in that solution is properly working, right? So this is a quick example of pattern that would allow you to see, to diagnostic the solution, and to really understand what is happening behind the scenes. Now, from a marketplace perspective, this takes even more context, in the context of, in order for you to understand the number of resources that are being used by your customers, you need to have this built in, right? This will allow you to, in case that you're using a transaction-based billing or meter-based billing, this would allow you to properly understand the number of transactions that customers are using for specific parts of your system, and then report that number into the billing API so the customer can be billed properly. So a very important part. Unfortunately, this is one of those areas that is done after the fact, and it's not like from the beginning thinking about it. The last part that we're going to talk about is going to be the building blocks to consider. So we broke them down on three big groups. Operational, basically will give you kind of what the operations are. So this is going to be your billing, governance, management, the metering, logging and monitoring. Then we have the application blocks itself. Those are the ones that build the solution, the core of it. So this is where you're going to have what identity model you're going to use, the tenancy, how you're going to partition the data depending in what your customer needs, what is your compliance needs for that solution. And then the last part is how do you manage the solution, right? Version control, continuous development, continuous integration, how you do your perf tests, how you do your loading profiling, etc. Right? So those are the big blocks to think about when you go this way. Now we're going to jump into what it takes to bring the solution into marketplace from a commercialization perspective. So when you start creating a SaaS app, or when you have a SaaS app and you develop the product, you want to think about how you're going to effectively commercialize it, how you're going to make money from this, right? So there's just three big areas to think about in this area. So you're going to have business considerations. So you need to understand, the SaaS business model. You need to define what strategy and what is the financial model you're going to use to monetize a solution. When you're gonna build a solution, you're gonna hire people to help you. You're gonna train people how you operationalize that solution. And also the part that is fairly important and Microsoft partners really appreciate is our strategy and go-to-market. What channels you can use and how do you close those deals. Okay, and Microsoft partner team can help you with the go-to-market channel strategy and those closing deals. Now, the last part that I want to say about the management is really you need to think about how you're going to share that solution. Julio is going to talk a little bit more on the deployment models for that. But basically, this will drive directly and it will have a direct impact in the commercialization and how much the billing model that you want to utilize. And we'll look a little bit more into that area. The last part is the billing and licensing considerations. The SaaS model differs radically from more of an on-premise or CAL-based license model. So in here, you will have the ability to think about, are you going to be billing on a monthly basis, yearly basis? You're going to do per seat, user device? Are you going to do a meter-based approach where you're going to pay, customers will pay you a number of transactions, right? Is that Meter is going to be fixed. You have the ability of doing fixed and variable. And there is also partners, developers, and startups that have this not only the software itself of the SaaS app, but also includes services. And if we're going to vertical spaces like IoT, you'll find yourself where the solution, the SaaS solution that you're selling, is going to be a composition of software, services plus hardware, right? So it's a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of considerations from how do you commercialize a solution. One of the tools that we have developed internally, and it's free for everybody to use, is part of the SaaS playbook, and you have the link below. It's a potential calculator. So this is an Excel-based calculator that would allow you to enter the information about what is your ROI, what is your current costs, how you plan to sell space on that SaaS offer, right? And by you inputting those numbers, it will give you kind of a good overview of what is your return on investment. And it is actually, it's a great tool for brainstorm about, what billing models, what capabilities, what tiers do you want to offer for your different customers that you may have. From the relevant building blocks for commercialization, there is a few of them that I want to touch upon. Obviously, when you develop your SaaS app, you're going to probably have a lot of the building blocks that we have in here, but there is really 4 ones that are super interesting for bringing your solution into the commercial marketplace. First one is the billing. How are you going to perform that billing and understanding how you're going to monetize the solution? Then the concept of identity, like how you're going to authenticate those users coming in. The third one is tenancy. Tenancy has to do in how we are going to be partitioning that SaaS solution for all our customers. So Julio is going to talk about that. It's an interesting topic, and it's a very complex topic. We've seen customers go from one end to the other, even hybrid models where they mix with multiple events depending on their business requirements, really. And the last part, we'll talk about onboarding and provisioning. This is how do you register customers coming in, how do you provision those customers, and how you enable the billing of those customers. So let's jump directly into the billing considerations. One of the things that you're going to see on the commercial marketplace is for us to have the ability of creating an offer. So this is basically how your offer is going to be proposed for customers to purchase it. As part of that experience, you also need to develop plans, right? Plans or SKUs. And normally an offer can have as many public plans as you need. And also you have the concept of a private plan. The concept of a private plan enables you to provide specific plans for specific customers. This is great. Like, let's say that you have customers that they're very large customers that you want to provide heavy discounts for it, but you want to make this plan not available for anybody else. So that's how the concept grows. So it gives you, the e-commerce platform will allow you to define what those private plans are. Yeah, let's say that you have a 10%, 15%, 20% discount on that plan, and then you will then enable that plan to the specific customers that you want. Okay. With that, what you're going to see also is the different billing options. We touched a little bit on those. This is a more of a review of the previous slide, but think about flexibility, right? Think about the way that you're currently selling your solution. You have here the ability of really tailor the billing to whatever your needs and whatever your customer needs are, right? So, you're going to have your per seat per year. You're going to have per month. Combination of those three would allow. It's also allowed. We have metered based that we talk about. This is transaction based, and also you have the ability of having fixed plus variable. Fixed and variable is, for example, you can say, I'm going to charge you $20 per month for the use of 200 megs. And then every meg after that, and this is the variable, will cost 10 cents per meg. Right? So that's the combinations that you can do. And then we have the concepts of dimensions, which just basically means you can have up to 18 meters as part of that specific plan. So very important to get this up front and make sure that you know what your billing model is going to be. The second part is the identity requirements. So there's really, if you think about the marketplace, you're going to have two main requirements. One is, hey, I need to make sure that whomever comes to purchase the solution is something that I can authenticate and I can validate that this is a proper request. So that's number one. And the second part is like I need a way for secure communication between the commercial marketplace APIs, right? So if you think about when you're enabling your solutions for marketplace, those are really the two big parts that you need to make sure that you have under control. We utilize Azure Active Directory to perform those two authentications. Your solution itself doesn't have to implement Azure Active Directory. Is just for these core pieces, right? Make sure that that initial customer registration and provisioning is authenticated, and then make sure that the communications between the APIs is also secure and authenticated. With that, I'm gonna let Julio talk about the incredible work of tenancy models. Go ahead, Julio.
Yeah, so let's talk about the tenancy models. Like any SaaS application, you will have tenants, and there are different ways that this tenant will require your solution to work. And we want to go and take you through the evolution of a tenancy model from the point of view of someone who starts as a startup and someone who has been maturing all the way to become a SaaS solution for enterprises. So on the first model, right, which is like usually these are the startup models where they're trying to save some costs, they want to have some customer, and they share everything. So most of the time they share the database, use one single database, they share between the tenants that they're serving and providing the solution. And as things mature, right, the startup may have new customers who really like the solution, who may want to have a different approach regarding to maybe the privacy, right? Or maybe they want better performance because they don't want to share their information with others. So the way that the evolution of the startup happens is that then they take maybe their database and they start taking that database and creating a second database for the new tenant. So every new tenant that start showing up to buy their solution, then will have their own database. Maybe it's a bit more expensive, but privacy concerns or performance issues are avoided that way. And that's something that customers do ask for our SaaS solution providers as they start seeing a lot more value into their solutions. The other way that we see partners moving and developers facing the challenges is when the customers really like the solution, and this happened to the very large customer like Fortune 500s where they like it, but they don't want the partner to run the solution on their subscription. They want the partner to have a way to package that solution, that SaaS solution, and bring it into the Fortune 500 subscription. And this is a model that we see constantly evolving, where like I mentioned, go from the very leader startup sharing everything to now you having to deploy everything on the partner subscriptions. And then we have a customer, as things matured, you may have all of them, right? So you may have an audience, a group of customers who may want to share everything. They need to save some money. You may have partners who may want to, have some performance, but they want the partner to run everything. And then, you as a publisher, you may have, those customers who want to run everything in their subscription. So this is, technically everything is a lot of work for their customers and their partners. So that's the way that we're looking to help you solve some of these challenges in the marketplace. All right, so to go over the onboarding process, so as Patrick took you through the different slides, we went over the customer onboarding, right? So we went into how customers should go into the web experience, register, how you register your customers. We went into the tenancies, right? So how can you register the customers and have them come into the marketplace? And then we also talk about the billing. So all of this is provided by the Azure Marketplace, and we're going to try to get you in the following slides on how we get you onboarded into our system. So let me take you into how to enable the SaaS application, your solution, into the marketplace. So the first thing that you will have in the Azure Marketplace as a partner is you will have to reach to the partner center. This is where you will configure your solution as an offer so your customer can see it. Following that, right, that you will publish that offer and it will be in the Azure Marketplace for your customer to see it and use it. The next thing that will happen is that once the customer finds your solution and click on it, right, he will be asked to log into the Azure Active Directory, and he will find information regarding the solution that they're looking to buy. The first thing is that they will see is the product, the description. They will see the pricing of that subscription, and then once they find the solution is exactly what they need, they will go into the offer landing page for your solution. Over there, they will get the name, the last name, the email, the plan selected, and they will agree to get that subscription. And then the last thing it will happen is they will go into your solution, the Azure your partner solution. So let's talk about the journey on the partner side, right? So you as a partner, you first will go in and log into the partner center. You will create an offer over there. You will provide information of the offer itself. You will have information and will add information on the plans and SKUs, and then you will provide technical information regarding that landing page for which your customers are going to be using to access your solution. So in order to make things simpler, me and Patrick here, we have a slide deck that contains all the information required to create an offer. So if you can go through each one of these steps, at least you're prepared with all the required information from the marketplace that need to be filled in order to get that offer published. Now, there is a section over there that is very important for you as a partner. And there's a section regarding that landing URL that I mentioned before, where the customer are going to be reaching out and buying your offer. There is also a mention of a connection webhook, and I'm going to go into detail into that, and an Active Directory tenant and an Active Directory application. So let's talk about that section that I highlighted before. There is a technical configuration that has to happen. So you as a partner, you are required to have a landing URL where the customer will get the information of the offer, the plan. There's a handshake that happens in that place. Once you have that landing page created using the API of the marketplace, you will have to enter that URL in the section of technical configuration of the partner center. On top of that, we have another requirement, which is connection webhook. And this webhook is utilized to get notification from the commercial marketplace. So for example, if a customer decided to cancel the subscription, or if the customer decided to do some other action into the marketplace from the Azure portal, there will be notification through this webhook and from us, the Microsoft, to you as a partner, so you can take actions on those cancellations, for example. And then to finish here, there are two components of the Azure Active Directory. You will need to register your landing page, and that landing page registration will be required to have a tenant ID and an application ID. So let's go over the requirements one more time. So we need a landing page, right? We talked about that before. We talked about a registration. So you need to create that registration of the landing page in the Azure portal on the Active Directory section. And then you will need to create the webhook and implement the Azure Marketplace API, so you can talk to the billing engine, and we can use that to start charging the customer who are interested in your solution. So I'm gonna now leave Patrick to talk about the hands-on on the SaaS SDK.
Thank you, Julio. So we, as part of the technical requirements for implementing the SaaS offer, what you're gonna see in reality, there's all these few components. So first, we need a way for registering the customer. You can use a web app to do that. You have also the need to assign a plan, and that plan would also come from the billing API, but you need to provide the ability for upgrade and downgrade plans. So that also will be, yes. Okay. Oh, let me see. To presenter.
Did you take
Okay, what about now?
So Patrick, in the little top menu, there's a little human on a desk where you have to take control, and then, because right now if you just use the arrows, it changes on your view, but not for our view. Yeah, you got it now.
Sorry guys. Yeah, I click one button instead of two. All right, let me start. Thanks, Julio, for the overview into how to enable the solutions to the marketplace. Now, let's take a look at the community developed Transactable SaaS SDK. Just to go into more detail on what we need, right? So, from a task perspective, there's a series of tasks that you're gonna have to do. One is obviously is going to be registering the customer. So when the customer comes after the registering for your service from their Azure portal, they will go into a landing page. So you need to have a way to register and provision that customer. That's normally in the form of a web app. Also, you need to have the ability of assigning a plan to that customer, and also to upgrade or downgrade that from a plan, right? So that will come from a web app based artifact. The last three areas is activating the billing, so we can start billing the customer, and operations for upgrade, downgrade, and operations for the offer management lifecycle. Those all come from the API calls. Okay. To make your life a little bit easier and to provide you a stepping stone, so you don't have to basically jump directly into building this. We have created a SaaS SDK, and that includes core components like the Transactable SaaS client library, which implements the fulfillment V2 API and the meter APIs. This library is basically a pure implementation on .NET Core of the API. So if you have if you feel the need to basically build it yourself, the documentation is on Azure Docs. We have an extensive documentations on the API. We have a lot of partners that directly implement the API and they build their own client library themselves. But this is a good way for you to take a look on what it takes, and it's something that interests you. You can always utilize it for your project. That would include the client library and then the webhook implementation. Then the second project that we have is the customer provisioning web solution. This will give you the experience in how to register that customer, give you time for you to provision that customer. It has a plan management component to it. So in there, you can have the customer come in and basically upgrade from one plan to the other if you want to choose to do so. And it also provides an implementation of webhook for you to get notification for marketplace. The third part is going to be the publisher web solution. That solution is an implementation of what your solution will look like. And we really developed this to show how to implement the management of the plans, for you to look at how you can send custom meters. If you're using a metered base or transaction base, how would you go about taking that consumption and shoot it back to the e-commerce engine? And then it has a lot of best practices built in there. Also, the last part is the data client access library, and what this provides us is with a layer of persistence between all the transactions that come in from the marketplace, transactions that you're sending to the marketplace, and also you have an ability there to do a persistence for the user registrations to the plans that are being assigned, and then your subscriptions on marketplace. So let's go into more detail on those four components. The first one, as we said, is the SDK client library. Our plans for this is to port it to different languages. As I said, it's a community effort, but basically this is one of the key areas that we probably gonna gonna work on. So currently it implements the Fulfillment API v2 and then the metered API. So Fulfillment API v2, just to be transparent what it does, it will do all the plan operations. It does all the lifecycle subscription operations, and it allows you to register and activate a customer. And from a billing perspective, that API does per seat per month and per year. And then the metered endpoints does all the API calls regarding metered based transactions. Okay, so that's the reference in there. It may cause some confusion. That's what I wanted to explain a little bit more. Last part, when we implemented the library, we created an interface-based solution. So what that allows you to do is, if you're, for whatever reason, for each one of the different states on the life cycle, so for example, a restantiation, suspend a customer, or unsubscribe events, when those happen, you can extend those method calls and basically add whatever is necessary for you to properly do your business the way that you need to do it. Okay, so everything is interface based, and you have the ability to extend those interfaces to your needs. So that's for the client library. As I said, this is kind of a more descriptive picture of the implementation of what's inside that client library. It's a great example for you to use if you want to develop your own client library on your own. The endpoints, this is what I was referring before. So as I said, provisioning and activation, plan management, and billing cycle, that's all Fulfillment API v2. From a billing perspective, you get per month, per year, per seat on fulfillment, and then metered API will cover all the meter calls. And as I say, everything is documented there. From the web solution, so this will provide you the experience in how to register and show and give you time to provision the customer. It also shows subscription management, how to do subscription management as people subscribe to your services. You're going to have multiple subscriptions. It also shows plan management, so it will have screens in how for a customer to upgrade or downgrade a plan, and also it contains all the login and auditing. So every transaction, everything that happens really inside that web app gets logged into a database. Then we also have the publisher web solution, and this is an example in that you can bring for you to have the ability to manage and activate those subscriptions that are coming from Marketplace. So it shows you on how to do that. And the part that is even more relevant is the meter transaction part. So it would allow you to we built an interface that would allow you to submit meters into the e-commerce engine. So it would allow you to have a screen where you can see the different meters, and when you click submit, it'll show you what was the JSON that was sent, or the calls that were sent to the billing API, and what is the response that you're gonna get back. So there's a couple examples. This is the example of the subscription management, and this is from the publisher side, and this is an example of how would you manage the subscription usage using meters. So the quantity in there of the dimension, select the dimension that you want, and then you will record the usage. And on the bottom, you can see kind of the messages that went from your SaaS offer or your SaaS solution to the API and back. The last part I want to mention is the client data access library. We use Entity Framework as the ORM layer that would allow you to communicate between all those web solutions and the database. This shows you the ERD model, but basically what we're trying to do is for you to have the ability to have an example that shows you, how to persist the customer information that you may need, how to persist the subscription that the customer is purchasing, have a view on the different plans that the customer will have. If you're doing metered based, basically look at the transaction that happened and an overall login of everything that is happening between the e-commerce engine and then your solution. So currently implemented on SQL, server for Azure, you can basically extrapolate that to whatever database repository that you want to implement. So that gives you a good overview of what the SDK, community developed SDK looks like. I'm going to have Julio give you a summary of the learning and then the resources that we have available. Go, Julio.
Yeah, so let's go over what we gained today. So what we learned during the session. So Patrick and I, we cover the core components of a SaaS application. We discussed all the tenancy models. We discussed the billing models and many other items, resources that require for a SaaS applications. We discussed the concepts of the marketplace on how to get your solution on the platform. And then we talk about how to enable that solution that you have to be part of the commercial marketplace. And then to finish, right, we talk about leveraging the open source SaaS SDK, leveraging the commercial marketplace sample that we have, and then try to go in and make sure that, you know, it's a GitHub project, it's a community project. So feel free to go in and play with it to get your solution into the marketplace. So before we go, we want to make sure that you have all the tools and links that will help you with creating that solution, or if you have it already, move it into the marketplace, right? So we have here a link, a set of links in the slide deck that will have all the different platforms as a service that we have, and things that may be helpful for you to get your solution into Azure, into the marketplace. The next slide that I have is regarding the links and resources for you as a partner to get the offers created, the calculator that Patrick talked about, the adoption. There are an amazing set of cloud partners as well that you should definitely look into it to get your product, your solution into the marketplace. And then to go and finish is what's next. So we have a great technical documentation. After this session is complete, go in and look at the forums that we have. Continue the discussions there. Ask questions. You know, we are here to help. And we have a set of GitHub projects, like we talked, and go in and explore them. And then if you have some M365 solution and you're an ISV, we also have a link for you. We haven't forgotten. Please go in and check those out. All right, that's everything we have today. Thank you for watching. Have a great build.